As whole countries are in panic as war spreads across the land, Centralia slowly falls to southern forces, and the Dark Lord grows ever stronger this way. Time is ticking as Jacob and Matt need to get to the last gems to stop evil from overtaking the land. I just love this book. It has inspired me to be just like Matt. Richard Paul Evans. I love Larry. He is so cool. Yeah, I haven't read this book either. Bill Clinton. Part 7. Chapter 1. As Jacob and the rest of his group crossed the dry, barren Sorophone Valley, Jacob thought about the challenge ahead. Looking back at his vision he had recently had, Jacob was afraid for what might be coming. Could the future be changed by doing something to disrupt it? Jacob thought. The next night, and around dinner time, Jacob was thinking these thoughts when Matt sat down next to him.
Hey, what you thinking about?
Asked Matt. I was just thinking if I could change the future that I see, my ability might be helpful, asked Jacob.
Hey, yeah, your ability is totally lame if you just see things that are gonna happen. What use is it if you find out you died 20 years? Mine is way cooler,
exclaimed Matt as he roasted his previously raw chicken with his fire breath. The next day was much the same as the last, and the next day, and the next. After traveling on the Sorophone Valley for almost a week, they finally reached the VII Plateau. In front of them lay a rocky mountain, with a red rock face looking west, and near the summit lay small cedars.
These are the Crescent Mountains. Behind them lies the lands of the Mesa, which is what people call the VII Plateau. In a few days' time we will be near where we think the yellow gem is located, announced Colonel Williams. They moved forward somewhat southwest, and the mountain to the left. Jacob knew that up north of here is where the Crescent Plague started. It started in these mountains, he knew, hence its name, from mosquitoes. The ports on the side of the Horman River were packed because vessels were not allowed to head east along the Jarlam River for fear of the plague spreading out of that area. If it weren't for the great wizards, Yemen and Nagistan would be a desolate wasteland, with only abandoned ruins left to show evidence of a people. Jacob only knew this because his dad had explained the false reason his grandfather had died. The next day, Jacob finally saw a mess of mesas across the skyline. Though beautiful, it brought him a pang of terror as he realized he was nearing the setting of his vision. There had to be a way to prevent it. That evening, as Jacob watched the sun go by behind the plateau, he started a new plan in his mind, one to avoid destruction. Chapter 2. Melissa ran into the meeting room.
Zemetist, they have charged into the city. Where should I go?
She cried. Zemetist pointed to some officers.
Take her to Jacobson immediately. Flee at full speed till you have left the danger behind. She must be protected, exclaimed Zemetist.
When Melissa's situation was dealt with, and she had left the room, Zemetist resumed.
All right, where was I? All right, we are being attacked. What should we do? Asked Zemetist. We need to use every advantage we can in our favor. We must rally the troops with honor and pride. We must testify confidence to our troops and their leaders by explaining an amazing battle plan we will come up with in the next few minutes, exclaimed General Poy valiantly. Really? How are we going to do that when all of our troops are currently fighting on the front line without a flippin' battle plan? Screamed Colonel Yesko. Just then, Apprentice Haven entered the room with black soldiers at his side. As Princess Melissa left the city of Maverick behind in her fancy carriage, along with thousands of other panicking citizens, Melissa took one last look at the big city with the setting sun casting large streaks of orange across buildings. The next day, they crossed the northern shore of Lake Maverick. Tall reeds and cattails lined the south side of the road, and on the north a forest of tall pines and oaks. As the procession moved with an escort of officers and guards, Jessica heard battle cries as black soldiers emerged from the thickets of trees. Alarmed and surprised, the group stopped in their tracks. With the carriage stopped, Melissa's personal guard pulled her out of the carriage. Princess, we need to get you out of here safely. Follow me and be quiet, whispered the young guard, probably about 18 or 19. They dove into the reeds as the battle started behind them. They walked for a few minutes south toward the lake, till the ground beneath Melissa broke and she was left in a mud hole.
Get me out of here! I'm all dirty now!
Yelled Melissa.
Keep it down! They will hear you!
whispered the boy frantically. Too late, though. As the boy pulled Melissa free, soldiers surrounded the two.
Ha! You two, come over here, said one in a scratchy voice.
The boy pulled out a short sword.
Run, Melissa, I will handle them,
exclaimed the boy. Melissa didn't need telling twice. She ran as fast as her legs would carry her through more thickets of reeds till a sharp bush snagged her dress, sending her flying into sticks and mud. Bloody, scraped, dirty, and soaking with sweat under the hot sun, and next to the humid lake, Melissa cried and lifted herself up. After swatting some late summer mosquitoes, Melissa headed off again, more slowly and cautiously than the previous time. Finally, she reached the lake shore. Tired and fatigued, she headed towards the lake. After dunking her head into the cool water, she headed off along the shore. Not knowing where she was going, she headed off along the shore. Right then, she only cared about getting away from these soldiers. Chapter 3. Jacob stopped to take a breath. He had been climbing up and down rocky hills and cliff faces as they made their way towards where the anti-dark resistance believed the yellow gem was located.
So, Colonel Williams, where exactly is the yellow gem? Asked Jacob. It is on the top of the Firehead, which is one of the tallest mesas on the plateau. It will be a very difficult climb, exclaimed Williams.
A couple hours later, Jacob found himself in a narrow gully as the group walked. Jacob saw one soldier start to stumble in the heat. Matt spoke up.
Hey, Williams, this guy needs water, said Matt.
That night, while sleeping next to Matt, Jacob heard someone sobbing.
What's up, Matt? Asked Jacob. I just hope that Melissa's okay. I feel like she is my new Jessica, you know?
Sobbed Matt dramatically.
Dude, is that just 'cause she looks like Jessica? Asked Jacob. No, well, yes, yeah, I guess a little, stuttered Matt. I just hope she's okay, you know? What if something happened to her? What if she's dead too? What if she decides to marry some rich dude's son or something? Stressed Matt.
I don't think she was ever attracted to you. Jacob spilled the beans.
Oh, yeah, right. Well, good night then.
Matt sighed, then started to cry again. The next day brought more heat. The hottest they had to endure the whole trip. Though it was the end of August and fall was just around the corner, the temperature didn't seem to care. During a lunch break that day, Colonel Williams explained the situation.
We're out of water. I estimate that by this evening we will see fire ahead for the first time. We will need to find some sort of water to make it through the next few days till we can head back west to find a stream. For now, use the small bit you have left and don't overexert yourselves, warned Williams.
Sure enough, that evening, Jacob ran out of water and also saw Firehead. It was huge, with red rock walls soaring up to dominate the surrounding mesas. Though compared to a mountain, it was nothing. It was amazing that something that can look that fragile be so tall. The next night, they decided to keep watch as usual, but with 3 instead of 1. They didn't know what encounters could have now behind so close to where the next step of the race was located. Though they hadn't had any bad encounters yet, not even local militias near small towns, it could happen at any time. The next morning, they set out across the sun-baked valley towards Firehead. Jacob was getting nervous. He had been thinking about his vision a lot the last few days and was afraid about what was to come. A couple hours later, one soldier fell to the ground, groaning, and had completely stopped sweating, though the scorching heat did not ease upon them. As one soldier gave the last of his water to the fallen one, Jacob suddenly had a vision. He was standing on red sandstone on the edge of a cliff, which he realized was Firehead. It was only Matt and he, and were both hot and thirsty. They both walked forward towards a large entrance with carved engravings around it. Then Jacob awoke. The soldier was pronounced dead, suffering from heat stroke. 2 other soldiers were suffering from heat stroke, and all were dehydrated. Few thought it was possible to complete the task with no water to be found. Only Williams had had the self-control to save some of his water, and he was now sharing with the most in need of water. With only 9 in the group, they walked in search of shade, and having no choice but to leave the fallen soldier behind. After finding a boulder to sit behind, they prepped for the challenge ahead.
We'll have to climb the mesa. It is about 500 feet tall with the entrance at the top, if there is an entrance. All willing to do so, to do the task, say aye, proclaimed Williams. All said aye, but Jacob and Matt had been planning on an alternate plan for the safety of them and the whole mission. As they had walked, Jacob told Matt about his vision, and they now decided to leave the group and do it themselves.
Jacob didn't feel comfortable about doing so, but knew it was the only way. As the group headed toward Firehead, Jacob thought on when to leave, but he didn't need to. Just then, one group member fell to the ground, with the same symptoms except this time his skin had large blue dots covering it. Realizing what this meant, Colonel Williams exclaimed, "Plague! Run for it!" Mosquitoes launched at other group members, and 2 fell to the ground shaking. With Williams, Jacob, and Matt together, they ran to the left. "One of the soldiers must have had those mosquitoes in some sort of container, released them to spread plague. It must be the crescent plague. Those are the effects," exclaimed Williams. Once safely away from the danger, they looked up at the cliff, deciding what to do. Jacob finally decided to tell Williams about his vision. Williams nodded and replied, "Yes, I think it is warning you. We need to go by ourselves. I don't know why, but I trust your abilities will show us," agreed Williams. They started up the incline at the base of the mesa. Once to the actual cliff, they started their ascent up into the sky. It was the hardest thing Jacob had ever done. He was glad he had developed a skill for climbing while in the Suzy lay, but this was far more challenging. After just 10 minutes, every muscle in his body was sore, and he was still dehydrated. Looking down, he realized he must have been 45 feet up, and a fall would lead to serious injury, if not death. He kept going just to the upper right of Matt and to the bottom left of Williams. Williams had directed them to stay to the side of each other in case they fell. That way they wouldn't send both on a deadly descent to the ground. Suddenly, Williams began to climb down. "What are you doing?" asked Jacob. "Finishing what Apprentice Haven couldn't," and pulled out a long knife. Before Jacob could react, Williams kicked them in the stomach, sending them to hold on with one hand. Williams was just going in with his knife when he felt a blast of heat come from below. Jacob looked down in time to see Colonel Williams going down 60 feet in flames. When Matt caught up to him, Jacob thanked him, and they then started up again. Chapter 4. Melissa stopped finally in a cornfield around dusk. She had never felt worse in her life. She promised she would never take the basic necessities she enjoyed for granted ever again. She didn't know anything about survival or farming, but she did know that a cornfield meant a farmer, and a farmer meant food, clothes, safety, and warmth. She pushed through cornfields for around an hour, till at last a farmhouse lit up in the nighttime sky. After knocking on the door, she heard footsteps as an old lady opened and let her in. As the lady closed the door, an old farmer walked in. "Well, hello! You look like you've been in a bit of a mess lately," chuckled the old farmer.
Well, of course she knows that. Offer her something to eat,
scolded the lady.
"Oh, of course. Where are my manners? Must have left them in the field then, huh?"
The man chuckled again in his country accent.
"Well, sorry, miss. You can have a seat. We just finished supper, but of course we'll feed you. I think you need a bath as well, I'll dare say twice," exclaimed the old man. After eating dinner and changing, she went to bed, and in the morning came to the dinner table. "Good morning, miss. Y'all got sleep, ya?" asked the man. It was customary in the country to ask this when someone had slept in.
"I slept fine, thank you,"
answered Melissa.
"How sweet. What is your name, by the way, miss?"
asked the lady. Melissa hesitated. She didn't think it safe to be telling someone she didn't know she was the princess, especially after yesterday's events.
My name is Melissa,"
she answered.
"Oh, what a lovely name. My name is Barbara. I'm sorry to ask, but where are you planning on going?"
asked Barbara. Melissa had lied the night before, saying she had gotten lost during a family camping trip next to the woods.
"Oh, I was planning on meeting my family at Finegrass. Could you take me there?"
asked Melissa. Just then the farmer walked in.
"What does she want, Barbara?"
asked the farmer.
"She needs a ride to Finegrass to meet up with her family,"
explained Barbara.
"Well, of course you can come up with us, missy. We'd be heading up to Copan today anyway. We'll just drop you off on the way," assured Lone.
Lone, that's what I was gonna say before you cut in,"
scolded Barbara.
"Excuse me for asking, missus, but why are you going all the way up to Copan?"
asked Melissa.
Well, haven't you heard? The Southerners, as they're calling them, are marching up north, taking over more land as they go. They are getting near here now. I reckon we have stayed too long already," exclaimed Lone. After they were packed up, they headed up to Finegrass. As they climbed up a high knoll, Melissa got a glimpse of Southerners readying to march up north. Chapter 5.
Jacob and Matt, after hours of climbing, reached the top of Firehead. As they lay exhausted in the heat and wind, they watched as the sun lowered to the west. 5 minutes later, thirsty and fatigued in every way, Jacob sat up. Matt, look, there's the entrance, mumbled Jacob. Matt sat up.
Should we go now or tomorrow?
Asked Matt. At dawn is the best thing. Now is rest, answered Jacob. As Jacob slept, he had another vision. This time it resumed where it had left off. They walked inside and down a spiral staircase that went down around 100 feet. Then it reached a landing. To the right was an unlocked door that Jacob felt wasn't the right path. Down and down they went until they reached another. This too was passed by, and they kept on going down. When they reached the next landing, Jacob felt they needed to get up back to the first door. When they reached the first door, Jacob pushed it open with Matt close behind. Then Jacob awoke. After explaining the dream he had, they agreed to do what the vision said to. They walked down the stairs and met the exact things his vision had told him. When they got to the top, they pushed open the first door, and inside lay a large room with stone columns holding it up. In the center of the room lay the gem on a pedestal. But they were not alone. Looking up from a corner lay a giant serpent. As it slithered towards them, its piercing eyes kept them frozen. Then, amazingly, it started to talk. "Ah, I see. You are the chosen ones," it hissed. "I know you will attempt to destroy me to get the gem. Yes, I know you have great powers, but not as great as mine. I would destroy you, but I have had this burden too long. I came in search of the gem, and you, as you will, failed the riddle, and was put in this form," it continued. "For 200 years I have had to guard the gem. Do you accept the riddle?" the serpent asked. Jacob and Matt both nodded, still in the serpent's grasp. "What does not move, but travels many lands, sleeps and awakens, but is always awake," the serpent hissed. Matt stood there with his mouth hanging open, but Jacob thought it through carefully. "Does not move, but travels many lands, sleeps and awakens, but is always awake." Jacob recited it in his mind. Then it came to him in a fast vision. He had a vision of the sun blaring heat at him. "The sun!" he exclaimed. "No, you will suffer!" exclaimed the serpent fiercely. It charged at them, and they ran, now not under its control. They ran and grabbed the gem, turned and headed toward the door. "You have avoided the trap by doing the door system, I see. You know it, and I wonder how you knew, but of course you will not tell anyone. You will not be telling anyone, for you will be the next guardian of the yellow gem." As it shot purple liquid out of its eyes at them, Matt shot a fire blast at the serpent, hitting it directly in the face as it screamed in pain. They burst out the door and up the steps. Suddenly, Jacob had a vision of him and Matt jumping off the cliff. When they got to the top of the stairs, Jacob exclaimed, "Matt, we have to jump!" Matt nodded and said,
"Okay, makes no sense."
The two ran to the edge, with the serpent not far behind now. As they leaped off the edge, the snake hissed in anger as it watched the descent from above. With the gem in hand, Jacob watched as life was about to come to an end at the bottom of the cliff. Suddenly, Jacob and Matt felt strong hands grab them and fly up back into the air. Looking up, Jacob saw the great wizard.
"Hello, chosen ones, well done!"
he exclaimed as they flew over the desert away from the firehead. The end of part 7.